All right, welcome back for another deep dive, you guys.
Yeah,
So today we're heading over to Brighton Hills, fictional town, of course,
of course.
and we're going to be looking into the murder of Eleanor Briggs.
Right.
Now, she was a beloved teacher, found dead in her own home.
Mm.
Looks like a burglary gone wrong at first, but
Yeah, a lot of these cases, they start out pretty simple, but there's always more to it than meets the eye.
always something more. We've got all the case files here, local news reports, and just from a quick glance, it's a pretty crazy case.
Yeah, I was looking over these files too, and I gotta say, it's real head scratcher.
So what was it that first tipped off Detective Carter, the lead investigator, that something wasn't right with this whole burglary thing?
Well, picture this. You walk into the house, it's been totally ransacked, furniture's flipped, drawers are emptied,
Right?
but then you notice something weird. A jewelry box full of expensive stuff just sitting there on the dresser.
Huh.
Wouldn't a burglar who's looking for a quick grab, take something that obvious?
I mean, yeah, that's a good point. Makes you think someone was trying to stage a burglary.
Right, make it look like something that's not.
So did Carter have any initial suspicions, like anyone who might have wanted Eleanor dead?
Well, the husband, Tom Briggs, he immediately becomes a person of interest, right?
Oh, okay, how come?
His alibi for that night is pretty shaky. Claims he was out driving, to clear his head after an argument with Eleanor.
Hmm.
But the details are vague, and his emotional state, well, let's just say it was off.
Off, how so?
Just didn't seem genuine. Carter's instincts told him to dig a little deeper into their relationship.
Okay, so we got the husband acting suspicious. Anyone else catch Carter's eye early on in the investigation?
Oh, absolutely. You always got to look at the people closest to the victim, right?
Makes sense.
In Eleanor's case, there were a few people that stood out. First, there's Leila Simmons, the next-door neighbor. Seems like a devoted best friend, totally distraught over Eleanor's death. But Carter noticed this nervousness about her, a hesitation in her answers that just seemed off.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So we got a potentially suspicious husband, a best friend who's maybe not so innocent.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Two others pop up pretty quick. Ryan Thompson, former student of Eleanor's.
Hmm.
Turns out they had this big falling out, very public, after she accused him of cheating.
Oh, wow.
Led to his expulsion, actually. Left Ryan feeling pretty resentful, thought she'd ruined his future.
Okay, yeah, so we got a potential revenge motive there.
Definitely a possibility. And then you've got Diana Harper,
Okay, who's that?
fellow teacher at the same school. On the surface, professional, all that.
Right.
But there was this simmering tension between them. Diana had been passed over for a promotion that Eleanor ended up getting, created
Yeah.
this sense of rivalry, resentment.
Yeah, so we've got four key players here. The husband, the best friend, the disgruntled former student,
Okay.
and the professional rival. Each with their own potential motives, and probably a whole lot of secrets, too.
Oh, yeah. And Carter, he knows that behind the perfect facade of a place like Brighton Hills, there's always something brewing under the surface. He starts piecing together the timeline, interviewing each suspect, watching their reactions, looking for any inconsistencies in their stories.
It's like peeling back layers of an onion, huh? Each layer revealing something new, a hidden truth.
Exactly. And that's where things start to get really interesting.
Yeah, so what did Carter find when he started digging into the lives of these four individuals?
Well, let's start with Tom and Eleanor Briggs, the seemingly perfect couple. Turns out, things weren't as rosy as they appeared. Financial records show they were in deep debt.
Wow.
There was tension over Tom wanting to sell their house, something Eleanor absolutely didn't want to do.
Okay, so the financial troubles, disagreement over the house, that adds a whole other layer to Tom's potential motives.
Right. Makes you wonder what else he might be hiding.
Definitely. So, what about Leela? Did her story hold up under scrutiny?
Carter's a meticulous guy, and he noticed some gaps in her account of that night. Turns out she was out of the house for hours that evening. Came back just before finding Eleanor's body.
Yeah, that's strange.
Her explanation was vague, and something in her demeanor told Carter she wasn't being completely honest.
So, Leela, the supposed best friend, has secrets of her own.
Looks like it.
This case is getting more twisty by the minute. What about Ryan, the disgruntled former student? Anything concrete come up about him?
Well, during the interview, Carter noticed this volatility in Ryan, a quickness to anger that set off some alarm bells.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't just a feeling. Carter found reports of previous incidents involving Ryan and other students. Dude had some anger management issues, plain and simple.
So we've got a volatile individual with a motive and a history of anger problems. What about Diana, the professional rival? Did her resentment towards Eleanor go beyond just, wanting that promotion?
Talking to colleagues at the school, Carter learned that Diana was ambitious, competitive, no two ways about it. She really wanted that promotion, felt like Eleanor got it at her expense. So while the rivalry was there, it's still unclear if it was enough to push her to murder.
Okay, so we have these four suspects, each with their own secrets, connections to the victim, and a possible motive.
Right.
What's Carter's next move? Did he find any hard evidence linking any of them to the crime scene?
This is where things take a turn. Remember that staged burglary scene?
Yeah.
Forensics found a blood stain on a vase in the living room.
Okay.
And guess whose fingerprints were on that vase? Leila Simmons.
Layla, the best friend. That's a huge twist. What was her explanation for that? Did she confess to being at the scene?
Well, that discovery changes everything, and it leads us down a path that unveils even more secrets and lies.
Man, I knew this case was going to be a wild one.
But we'll have to save that for part 2 of our deep dive into the shadows of guilt.
I can't wait to hear what happens next.
You and me both.
Welcome back to the deep dive, everybody. Last time, we left off with that bombshell, Layla's fingerprints at the crime scene.
Yeah, the plot thickens, huh?
Big time. So what did Leila have to say when Carter confronted her with that?
Well, she cracks, breaks down, admits she was at Eleanor's house that night. And get this, she reveals she was having an affair with Tom Briggs.
Whoa, hold on. An affair with the husband? That's a whole other level of messy.
Tell me about it. Talk about a tangled web.
So why did she go to Eleanor's that night? What was Leila's motive?
She says she went to confront Eleanor about the affair, wanted her to leave Tom. Things got heated, out of control, and in a moment of panic, rage, she hit Eleanor with that vase.
A crime of passion, huh? Jealousy, betrayal, the whole 9 yards?
Yeah, that's the story anyway.
Did Carter buy it? Did that finally give him the answers he was looking for?
Not so fast. Carter, he's sharp, and something about Leila's confession just felt off. The forensics report, it showed that the blow that killed Eleanor, the angle, the force, it didn't match up with that face she talked about.
You're saying the murder weapon, it wasn't the vase. That's a pretty big hole in her story.
Right, so what does Carter do? He takes another look at the crime scene, goes over the forensic evidence again.
What was he looking for this time?
Blood spatter. Turns out, blood spatter analysis, it's like its own language. You can tell a lot from the patterns, the trajectory of the blood.
Really?
Yeah, you can figure out the angle of impact, how much force was used, even the type of weapon.
That's insane. So what did the blood tell Carter?
It told him something heavier than that vase was used. Something else delivered the fatal blow.
Wow. Okay, so Leila's confession, it's fallen apart. Did Carter go back to her, confront her with this new evidence?
He did, and Leila, she's already a mess. She crumbles under the pressure, still insists she told the truth about the argument, but her memory, the exact details, it's all fuzzy, like a dream.
So we've got a partial confession, some evidence backing it up, but a whole lot of questions still hanging in the air.
And remember Tom Briggs, that initial suspicion about him.
Oh yeah, the husband. What about him?
The affair, the holes in Leila's story, it all brings the spotlight back on Tom.
Okay, so was Leila telling the whole truth? Or was Tom involved somehow?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And Carter, he decides to retrace Tom's steps on the night of the murder, goes over surveillance footage from a nearby gas station, and boom, he hits pay dirt.
What did he find?
The footage shows Tom buying gloves and cleaning supplies just hours before he supposedly found Eleanor dead.
Gloves. Cleaning supplies. That's suspicious. Why would he need those if he was innocent?
Exactly. Big red flag for Carter. Why would Tom need to clean anything if he just came home and found his wife murdered? It screamed cover-up.
Whoa. Was he trying to frame Leila? Make it look like she did it?
It sure seems that way. Carter figures Tom finds Eleanor, sees a chance, a twisted one, to manipulate the situation. Use Leila's outburst, her being there, to deflect suspicion from himself.
Chilling. He was using her as a scapegoat. So what happened when Carter confronted Tom with this?
Tom, he cracks too. Admits he got home earlier than he said, found Eleanor before calling the cops.
So he lied about his alibi. But did he confess to killing Eleanor?
This is where Tom gets even sneakier. He confesses, but not to murder. Says he found Eleanor already dead. In a fit of rage, he decides to frame Leila. Revenge for the affair, you know, and a way to save his own skin.
So still pointing the finger at Leila, but now he's admitting to tampering with the crime scene.
Yeah, making her take the fall.
Did Carter believe him? Second time's the charm.
Carter's too smart for that. Knows every confession needs a closer look. And in this case, there were still too many loose ends, things that didn't add up.
Man, every time we get close, it's like another layer of this onion gets peeled back.
I know, right? It's crazy.
So what was it about Tom's confession that made Carter suspicious? What happened next in the investigation?
Well, Carter felt like there was more to the story, a deeper motive behind Tom's actions, something he wasn't saying. And when he looked into the Briggs' finances again, he found something that changed everything.
Okay, this is getting good. What did he find?
We'll have to dive into that twist in the final part of our deep dive into the shadows of guilt.
I am on the edge of my seat here. Welcome back to the deep dive. We're at the climax of the Eleanor Briggs case, and things are getting pretty intense. Last we heard, Tom's trying to pin it all on a staged suicide by Eleanor, but Carter ain't buying it. What was it that kept Carter digging?
Carter's got this intuition, this sense that there's more to the story. And in this case, the answer was hidden in plain sight, the financial records.
What did they find in the records? Something fishy about Tom and Eleanor's finances.
Turns out there was this life insurance policy on Eleanor, a big one, and guess who the beneficiary was? Tom.
No way. Seriously.
Yep, and the timing. It was taken out just weeks before Eleanor died.
So Tom stood to make a lot of money if Eleanor died. Adds a whole new motive, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Could be he planned the whole thing, make it look like an accident, maybe even a suicide, and walk away with a hefty payout.
That's messed up. To think someone could be so cold, kill their own wife for money. Did Carter confront him about the insurance?
He did, and Tom, well, he had an explanation, a pretty wild one, actually.
Let's hear it.
Tom claimed that Eleanor, she was the one who wanted to die. The financial stress, the loveless marriage, it was all too much. So she came up with this plan to make her death look like murder. That way, Tom would get the insurance money.
Wait, so he's saying Eleanor killed herself and set it up to frame him and Leela? That seems a little far-fetched.
It does, doesn't it? But Tom insisted she knew about the affair and wanted to make it look like a crime of passion.
Why not just leave a note? Seems like a lot of work to stage a whole murder scene.
Exactly. That's what bothered Carter. Why go through all that trouble if she just wanted to end it? Was she trying to protect Tom? Or was there something else going on?
So on one hand, we got Tom's story, Eleanor committing suicide and making him look bad. On the other hand, maybe she was murdered by Tom for the money.
Right. Two sides to the coin.
How'd Carter try to figure out what really happened?
He looked into everything, went through Eleanor's things, hoping to find something, any indication she was suicidal, talked to her friends, family, colleagues, tried to understand her state of mind before she died.
Did he find anything to back up Tom's story? Any signs that Eleanor was thinking about suicide?
Well, he found that Eleanor was definitely under pressure. The money problems, the strain in her relationships, it was taking its toll. Some people said she seemed withdrawn, lost in her thoughts, in the days before her death.
Okay, so there were signs of trouble, but was it enough to say she was suicidal? Did Carter end up believing Tom's version of events?
That's the thing about this case. Even after all that investigation, they never could prove or disprove Tom's claims. No suicide note, nothing concrete to say Eleanor planned her own death. So the possibility remains, maybe Tom made it all up, concocted this whole story to hide his crime.
So we're left with a big question mark hanging over this whole case. What happened to Tom and Leela in the end? Did they face any consequences?
Well, Tom, even though he tried to blame Eleanor, he was convicted of obstructing justice. The court couldn't ignore the fact that he messed with the crime scene, tried to pin it on Leela, ended up doing time, his greed landed him behind bars.
Wow, what about Leela?
Leela, she got caught in the crossfire, blinded by love for a guy who used her, pleaded guilty to manslaughter, her actions that night having tragic consequences. The court saw the whole picture, sentenced her to less time than Tom, recognizing she was both guilty and a victim.
So they both paid the price. But the truth about Eleanor's death, it's still out there, lost in the shadows.
It is. This case, it's a reminder that things ain't always what they seem. Even the most picture-perfect lives can have secrets, darkness hidden beneath the surface.
The case of Eleanor Briggs is a real tragedy. It shows how lies and betrayal can destroy lives, and how sometimes, even with all the evidence, the truth remains elusive. Leaves us with a lot to think about, that's for sure. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the shadows of guilt. Until next time.